I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Robbie. He's going to introduce our panel. And for this one, we're going to go straight to questions as soon as our introductions are done. Robbie.
Test. There we go. All right. We got Rob Skiba. We got Dave Murphy. We got Jeran Campanella. We got Matt Procella, ODD TV. Awesome. Dave, Steere, IRTH, and Bob Knodel. We're going to open it up right away to questions. Let's shoot them. We're going to do a lot so we can get all the questions in. Let's get going and let's do it right. All right.
Jess, yeah, I've just got one quick question in two parts. I became a flat Earth in '96 when I read Robotham's book, and shortly thereafter, I found the flat Earth book by Cosmas Indicopleustes from the 6th century, the ancient Christian model, which is different from the modern model that follows Robotham. My question is, I guess, in two parts, but it's both getting at the same thing. Has any one of you known any flat earther that follows the model of Cosmas Indicopleustes? Or perhaps, maybe more likely for a yes answer, do you know any Orthodox Christians who are flat earthers? Or are you aware of a flat earth movement in Russia?
I think the last part, a flat earth movement in Russia, was that what you said? Interesting. I was interviewed on a Russian show, and it was all through translator. And so the guy was interviewing me. This was before I really even committed myself to this. And it was the topic of the Nephilim. So it wasn't even a flat earth interview. But after it was over, the translator said, "Can you hang on a few minutes after we go off the air?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we got off the air. She goes, "I just want to tell you something." So flat earth was actually taught in our public schools as late as 1917 in their public schools. So I just want to add that on the Russian part. I don't know about the other questions you asked. Maybe somebody else has an answer for that.
He's asking, do you know anybody that goes by the Cosmos and
The Cosmos
model?
I don't. If you're talking about the Cosmos, the monk from Egypt, I think it was. Yeah. Now his was more of a rectangle box, if I remember right. Yeah, because he had the idea that the tabernacle in the wilderness of the Israelites was a representation of the earth, and so because of that, he thought of the earth as a box. But Andy Hoy has changed that around a bit. He's the Hebrew scholar I mentioned last night during the debate, and he was not a flat earther. He's just a Hebrew scholar and an engineer. As an architectural engineer, he was looking at the descriptions of the tabernacle in the wilderness. And it specifically says that you're not to add to or subtract from the Torah. And so when you look at most of the rectangular models of the tabernacle in the wilderness, they're adding tent pegs and ropes and poles or various things because it's an unstable structure as a box. And so he looked at it, long story short, I'll keep it short, is he said taking a literal interpretation of the descriptions given and not adding anything to it, you actually end up with a circular 6-story high dome tent. So Cosmos may have been on to the right idea, he just had the wrong model.
All right, next question.
First thing, kind of a little bit of a comment. I would like to thank all the parents who brought your children here. Because if anything saves, if this is a savable situation, it's going to be through parents who do that and parents who homeschool. The government schools are lost. The government schools are lost. Anyway, in this whole theology that of the flat earth, and we realize that as this builds and becomes larger and larger, that there are infiltrators here now. The satanic influence will be into this movement, and they will be here to subvert us here. Understand that. They've been doing it in the churches for a long time. It's well documented. My question to you is we understand that this alien situation that they're going to try to project as their turning point, and this is going to happen. There's no doubt this is going to happen. Should we be not moving in a direction to address, and I know some of you do, but should we not be making that a focal point that we address this and say, this is going to happen? be aware of this, because the delusion is coming, and God said, I will give you a delusion and you will like it.
I'll just say something real quick and pass it down. I don't want to dominate the panel here, but Werner von Braun, of all people, said, and he was saying this apparently for the last decade or so before he died, that there's several things and it's all a lie. You know, the whole deal with Russia, lie. You know, after that, you know, the Cold War, after that, we're going to have third world countries, and then it's going to be terrorism, all based on a lie. Then it's going to be asteroids, which is where we are right now. We're dealing with that, weapons of mass destruction needed for fending off asteroids, all a lie. And he said the last card is aliens. And remember this, it's all a lie. Werner von Braun.
Wonderful. Let's go with the next question.
This is all together. All the countries, they're not separation. There is no separation. All the countries of the world are in on this. It's all kabuki theater. You're here to entertain. You're the audience, and you're paying the price.
All right, next question.
This is a paradigm question. Is anyone working on a model of the Hebrew snow globe or the Skiba's footstool design of the flat disk to include the idea of a toroidal electromagnetic structure surrounding and supporting the dome, and perhaps as an explanation that these could be the pillars that support the whole firmament and disk?
Bob's taking it.
Okay. Yeah, I think so, because, you know, behind this entire construct, you know, some of the original people that started FEAssn, which is Mike Kavanaugh and Steve Torrance and Dr. Zach, modeled their sky based on a toroidal projection, okay? And in the toroid, you've got the centripetal and centrifugal lines of force, and then you've got the dielectric inertial plane, which is the area that we're standing on. So we're working on this model to show, in part at least, how the toroid affects the light that's coming into this construct. So in short answer to your question is yes, people are definitely looking at that possibility.
All right, next question.
Thank you guys for what you're doing to help wake people up. It's about time. My question is twofold. If we had been working with the biblical cosmology model for the past 500 years, do you think we would have made more scientific progress to make human life a little better on Earth? I'm talking about real science, good stuff, not make-believe science. And the second part of the question, since next month, we'll be celebrating Christmas with our friends and families. Do you think if we were working with the biblical cosmological model, we would have more peace on earth and more goodwill to all mankind? Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll take it. Well, yeah, I think anytime you're walking in the truth, you're going to be better off for it. So if we've been walking in a lie for 500 plus years, well, look at the result, right? I mean, there's no reason we should be still driving cars based on fossil fuels, right? You know, the technology and the things that Tesla was working on and stuff, we should have all free energy. But now look, we're paying for the water we drink, for crying out loud. That's how bad it's gotten. So yeah, short answer would be, if we were walking in the truth, we'd be way better off, in my opinion.
Okay, next question. If we can we try to do it like non-biblical, just because we did the biblical panel?
Yeah,
and if you have new questions,
this one's
maybe you
non-biblical.
Okay, good thing.
Probably focus a little bit on Jeran's. So I worked for Lockheed Martin on airborne laser. I was there for the first shoot down on that. My dad worked for NASA on the ER2 program. I was born in Vandenberg. We were going to launch the shuttle there. I've seen the shuttle land. I've touched the shuttle. The thing is about the $53 million a day, they're doing something. I mean, I was a part of ordering screws and titanium parts for aircraft that cost thousands of dollars per screw. So the money's being spent. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are employed, and I can walk up and I can touch the shuttle, right? So what do you guys, what is the sense that you have that they're doing? If we're not going into space and they're doing a lot of filming in the water, where are the rockets going? What is the research in your opinion? Because I love what you said today about the air separating. That was such a good way to show like the density and the gravity. But what are they doing in your estimation? Having worked for these companies.
Well, I think that the money has to go somewhere, and they like the idea of saying that the money stays in the community or that the money stays here on Earth. It's not being spent in space. But I think one of the biggest things that we need to recognize is that, well, first of all, there's no way that they went to the moon on the power of, one iPhone has more computing power than the entire NASA collection of computers in 1969. So, could your iPhone get you to the moon? But I think what it comes down to is no matter even if the Earth is round, okay, so even if the Earth is a sphere or if it's flat, regardless, either way, NASA is the most inept organization of all time. They are doing nothing. They're providing nothing to humanity but dreams. So when you say you're able to touch the shuttle, well, of course, the shuttle is part of their dream system that they're selling you, and it wouldn't be a very good deception if you could never see it, you could never touch it, you could never watch it launch. So they need it to go up in the sky, they need it to make a lot of noise, they need it to catch people's attention, they need it to end up on TV news, they need it to be put into the school system, they need it to be taught at a young age, and that's what we see. And there's a reason for that. If it was real, to me, people would gravitate to that without needing the pomp and circumstance that they put out there. It's a big show. I mean, it's basically what it is. They don't provide anything to humanity. I'm sure other people can add to that, but you got anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say, they've been, the ISS has been there since 1999, and I think you mentioned this, that there's no footage anywhere of the ISS being built. Right? The only place you can see the ISS being built is in the beginning of Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh yeah.
It's the only place, the only time you ever get to see it put together. Yeah. And as you said, they're doing experiments for children. Yeah, they're sort of swallowing water sort of bubbles, and they're wringing out washcloths and stuff. You don't see any science, for, I don't know how much money they're getting for did they take for the ISS? I mean, it's got to be billions and billions and billions.
I think it's $150 billion was the U.S. cost.
Right.
Which sometimes we hear numbers like that and we don't really even know what that means, 150 billion, or when you hear that the deficit is 17 trillion, it's hard for us to grasp that number.
21 trillion.
21, say sorry. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. And to me, it's just more propaganda, more stories.
And to answer or to speak to the shuttle question, they had to have a jet-powered shuttle, to land every time. Yeah, that's what you touched, the jet-powered shuttle. And I don't know if anyone's seen this, but Russia tried to make their own space shuttle, and it was jet-powered. There's this video of this shuttle rolling out onto the tarmac under its own power.
Yeah, you can find it online. It's called the Buran, B-U-R-A-N. And yeah, you can clearly see it just flies like a plane.
Right, so, I think my personal view, and obviously I don't work for NASA or anything, but my personal view is that they've got a public face where they spend so much, maybe they spend $1 billion, let's be generous, yeah? They spend $1 billion on parts and, things for show, and the rest goes into their black budgets, You all know that September 10th, 2001, I think it's 2.1 trillion was missing. They couldn't account for. And I think just recently, was it 6 point something trillion? Right, so 6.2 trillion missing. Now, it's just recently that we've got the concept of what a trillion is. Do you remember back in the bailouts? Yeah, they said the first bailout, 500 million. Yeah, billion, sorry, 500 billion. They had to put graphics on TV to show people what a billion and a trillion was, yeah? So that we can actually conceptualize it. So, yeah, there's lots of stuff going on that we don't know about, and that money, all that missing money and the money that's going to NASA is going for all these black budget things that they're planning against us.
Many of you may have heard Jeran and we mentioned what a trillion is. Just think about this. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. Okay? You can't even wrap your mind around that. And they throw these numbers out there like they're nothing. 31,000 years is 1 trillion seconds. Let that sink in.
Wow. Let's go with the next question.
This is a simple question. I just want to know, we know about all of these conspiracies, right? That's how it started. And we also know that the flat earth is probably it's actually the mother of all conspiracies? Or do you think, is there any more truth that we're going to discover in the future? Is there any more things to discover, or is just the tip of the iceberg?
I think Dave Murphy's going to answer this one.
I think that was for him.
I kind of agree with this. The flat earth is the mother of all conspiracies, but my original talk here was going to be beyond flat earth, because a lot of people got into the truth through flat earth, but literally there is a whole host of topics that a lot of you haven't actually even looked at. You know, every aspect of your life is a conspiracy. You know, all the muggles that say to you, oh, not everything's a conspiracy. Well, actually it is, you know. Money, for instance, we all, have to use money. We're not taught about it at school. You know, does that not make sense to anybody? I mean, why aren't we taught about money? The reason why they don't teach us about money is because they can't teach us about money. Otherwise, we'd see the trick, because it's a scam. It's a trick. And so everything you look at, if you took the time to look at it in detail and scratch beneath the surface, you'll find it's a conspiracy. It's a lie sitting underneath it. Yeah, and it's everything. So I'll pass it to somebody else.
Oh.
Well, I don't even know how to use a microphone. That's odd. Hello, sorry I'm late. There was some difficulties. But anyway, I'd like to answer that question too, but very briefly. I think a conspiracy or a secret, something that's been hidden that is still left to discover, each one of us will discover in due time. And it's a big mystery, what happens when we die. So that's something to think about.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Yes, I'm recently come from a paradise burned to hell. And I don't believe it was entirely natural, so it kind of goes along with what you're just referring to. We've gone through a lot of paradigm shifts. This is a paradigm shift, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Let my question begin with some scripture, okay? This is from Jeremiah, chapter 16, verses 14 and 15. It says, "Therefore, behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when it will no longer be said, He, as the Lord lives, who brought up the sons of Israel out of the land of Egypt, but as the Lord lives, who brought up the sons of Israel from the land of the north and from all the countries where he has banished them. For I will restore them to their own land, which I gave to their fathers." And also, in chapter 23, verses 3 through 8, "Then I myself shall gather the remnant of my flock out of the countries where I have driven them, and shall bring them back to their pasture, and they will be fruitful and multiply. I shall also raise up shepherds for them, and they shall tend them, and they will not be afraid any longer, nor be terrified, nor will any be missing, declares the Lord. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I shall raise up for David a righteous branch, and he shall reign as king and act wisely, and do justly and righteousness in the land. In his days, Judah will be saved, and Israel will dwell securely. And this is his name by which he will be called, the Lord our righteousness. Therefore, declares the Lord, days are coming, declares the Lord, when they will no longer say, as the Lord lives, who brought up the sons of Israel from the land of Egypt, but as the Lord lives, who brought up and led the descendants of the household of Israel from the north land and from all the countries where he has driven them. Then they will live on their own soil. There are references to what I would call the greater Exodus from Genesis all the way through Revelation. It's full throughout. The next great event, I believe, will be this greater Exodus. It's going to happen. And it's not that far away, I believe. So what is that going to look like on a flat earth?
That's a bizarre question. That's a bizarre question. Let me first of all say I'm a big believer in the second Exodus. And I've actually talked about it quite a number of times at various conferences and stuff. Zach Bauer's another guy, if you're interested in that deal, the second Exodus. Talk about conspiracy. I think 1948 is a conspiracy, and I'll leave it at that because it's not a fulfillment of the scriptures that he read and a number of others. But as far as what it's going to look like, who knows? I think if it's a greater Exodus and he's pulling his people from all over the world, then just read the book of Exodus and amp it up, on the circle of the earth.
Okay, I've got another interpretation of this, which might be a bit odd for most of you. But my interpretation of that whole story is all about the Old Testament, and that's what's happening now. The Hebrew Israelites are in this country, the African Americans. Okay, they've been within slavery and affliction for 400 years. Well, 399 years this year, and the end of that slavery is next year. Yeah, August 21st, 2019, yeah? And just to kind of give a kind of underlining of that, America last year got a huge sign in the sky, okay? Yeah, and somebody mentioned sun, moon, and stars were signs and seasons. Well, the huge sun in the sky was a great American eclipse, only visible in America. Yeah, if it wasn't for the chemtrails, every man, woman, child would have seen at least a partial eclipse. Yeah, it was a sign. It happened on August 21st, exactly 398 years to the day when the first slave arrived in America. Yeah, that will be the Exodus. And not only from this country, but from all countries in the world. We're already seeing the beginnings of this, right? Trump signed Executive Order 1214, allocating funds for the, celebration of the 400 years of African Americans in America. In England, there's this thing called Windrush, where the people who were who came over to England from the West Indies on the ship Windrush they'd be moved back, or the idea that they're going to go back to their country. Even Trump said, if you were born in this country, even if you were born in this country, you're not necessarily a citizen. It's the beginnings of, people leaving the countries. I think Ghana apologized for its part in slavery and offered land for African Americans to go back to. This is the second Exodus. And, between now and, actually last year when that eclipse happened, 7 years on from that eclipse is another eclipse, okay? Crossing that first eclipse over the New Madrid fault line. I think in between now and that time, you're going to see some very, very strange things happening in this world. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. This question is for Jeran. I just wanted to know, with more time and research, do you think that you'll be able to come up with a model that is more, a flat earth model that is more conducive of reality? I noticed that you were kind of struggling against Red's rhetoric, and I was, yeah.
Hello? Oh, there we go. The reason that I struggled in that debate was because they wanted me to adopt a model, right? And at the time, and still now, I don't feel comfortable in adopting a model, because once you adopt a model, you have a belief system, and I think that's the enemy of truth. Anytime that you start believing in something that you haven't been proven, but then all of a sudden you put it on as if it's your truth. And I'm definitely afraid of that. I don't want to adopt anything that I haven't proven myself. So that's why I struggle in that debate. They've got a model, right? They've put it together for 400 years. They know it in and out. It's mathematical. My challenge to them is to prove it. I thought in that debate that they did a terrible job of proving it. If you were here for last night's debate, I thought that Rob Skiba absolutely destroyed Robert Sungenis under the same kind of situation. I don't know if you guys agree. But it's kind of the same thing. I mean, Rob is somebody I look up to because yesterday, I mean, he was just nailing point after point after point after point after point. And then it would go to Sungenis, who would slowly try and talk about 1 point. And it just seemed like the score was, 1,000 to 20 by the end. So I think that it was kind of the reverse of that when I was in the debate, because they wanted me to argue a model. That was the debate rules. And that's what I followed. So yeah, I didn't do too well at that. I'm learning how to do debates, but I didn't have a model, and I just wanted to go in there and make sure that they knew why I didn't have a model. The reason I don't have a model is because once you have one, like they do, they'll never see anything else, right? I mean, Res Rhetoric will never see the errors of his ways because that's his belief system. He's adopted it. Oh man, that was exciting for a second. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, we want to keep, drawing a new model. I like the app that we're looking at. The app helps really understand the sun and moon a lot better. It's the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock, which you can get on iPhone and right, and coming soon to Android. So yeah, but I want to get. Obviously, we're going to get to the truth. It's going to take some time, and it's all of us working together and bouncing things off each other, and we're going to get there. It's just we don't have all the money that they had to set up. Everything that they discovered with government money, huge funds. We just don't have that money. We did Globebusters did a crowdfunding. I think we made $2,000 for a balloon launch. It was a decent launch, but those kind of launches can be much better. They can, it takes money. I don't know. If you look at everybody here, let's say there's 600 people here. If everybody donated $20, that's $12,000. So think of how much everybody spent to be here this weekend. They spent probably $1,000 each. But if each person would have donated $20 to one specific test or experiment, then we can start moving the chains. The problem is there's a bunch of us doing this, and there just isn't the funds to do some of the testing and things that these guys have been able to do for 400 years. And ring laser gyros that we've started to be able to look at. We're just barely scratching the surface right now of all the testing that we're going to do that's going to help us narrow this down and prove where we live.
Check. I just want to add to what Jeran said. I did a fair amount of tests myself, and not one of them was less than $2,000. Not one of them. They all, whether you're talking about transportation, equipment, materials, whatever, it just costs money to do this stuff. So when we're being challenged, show us the model, show us the map, it's a ridiculous request. We've been doing this for 3 years, most of us. We have no money and no resources. So to provide all the answers that people want when they think they have all the answers and they've had 2,500 years and $50 million, a day to organizations like NASA, it's an unfair question. So the only way we can even remotely try to compete is for everybody in the community to get together and help people like FEAssn and what they're doing there to do better and more experiments.
I just wanted to let you know, ODD, how much I personally appreciate everything you've done to make the Flat Earth happen. And we love you, and as you can see, everybody loves you. And power on, brother. Praise God. Thank you.
Let me just say that I appreciate that so much. And the reason why I started doing what I'm doing is because when I first started, I couldn't find anything to relate to. I couldn't find any kind of layman terms to hear this stuff in. So I thought I would be that kind of person to relay a message to people like me who aren't that smart. You know, I could be honest here. I'm not the most scientific or school type person. I didn't like school. I didn't like a lot of things. And scholar, you know, I'm just not a scholarly type person. So I wanted to relay messages in ways where, you know, the basic person could understand. How would most people be able to pick up on this? So I really appreciate you, and I'm very glad to be doing this. And I'm, you know, all these people up here, it's just amazing what we're doing and how much headway we're making. So thank you.
This is another conceptual design question. It was commented last night during the debate that there was this number of 300 or 3,000 miles being the height of the dome. And I wonder if we could have a discussion about the necessity of the dome to be not 300,000 or 3,000 miles high, but more like 30,000 miles high or more to satisfactorily contain what we can see in the Milky Way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and this has been a bone of contention I've had with Dr. Singenis, is he hasn't cited, at least not that I've seen. I've only read about half of his book, so maybe he does 730 pages, so maybe it's in there somewhere. But he cites various measurements of the Earth, and I'm like, where are you getting these measurements from? You know, in the book that I just published with Dr. Samuel Rowbotham's book, I did a commentary on it, and in Samuel Rowbotham's book, he I believe it was 54,000 miles in circumference is the number he gives for the circle of the Earth, if I remember right. And, you know, I did some math on that and elaborated on it in my commentary, but I have never said that the firmament is 3,000 miles high. I'm not aware of anybody here that has ever said that. In the book, it talks about the sun may be at 7,000 miles high, and like 40 miles across or something like that. I forget the numbers, but I've always said it would have to be at least 10,000 or more miles higher. You know, I don't think we're ever going to know, frankly. Jeremiah 31 says you're not going to be able to measure heaven. So best we could do is probably tap into some of the energy fields and stuff out there and figure out what, you know, what's maybe the distances to some of that. But I don't think we're ever going to find the distance to the firmament, frankly. But I know it's not 3,000 miles. I don't know if we need to know, but I know with some of the models that they're working on with the toroidal fields and stuff like that, it probably requires more than 3,000 miles up.
Tess, hello. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, first of all, I want to state that I think where the original figures of roughly 3,000 miles, and of course I've also come up with my own number of 3,415.9 miles, but a lot of that comes from triangulation to the moon. Okay, and if you triangulate the moon without adding parallax into the equation, then the moon triangulates at about 3,409 miles, roughly. Reg Rhetoric himself did that, right? Also, the one thing that I found very interesting is because of the fact I understand that numerology plays a very important role in not only the Masonic creation, you know, but the creation in general. One thing that I found very interesting, and I've mentioned this on Globebusters a few times, is if you take the number 180,360,00 feet, that equates to 3,415.9 miles precisely. Now, if you plug that 3,415.9 miles into a distance to the horizon calculator, it comes up with precisely 6,225 miles. And of course, if that is a bidirectional throw of light, that's 12,450 miles, which is exactly the height that would be required to give a throw of light for half the Earth at one time. So that's probably where a lot of that comes from. Of course, we also know that there's, you know, atmospheric lensing effects. There's a whole host of other variables that can be calculated into this. But I just wanted to give you an idea of basically where those figures came from. Okay.
So this question's for the panel, and I apologize for kind of the dark tone of it, but this year's kind of theme of the conference is taking it to the next level. And I feel like we're kind of doing a small thing and a really big thing at once. You know, we're trying to show our friends and family and neighbors that the world isn't what, you know, they thought it was. But at the same time, once this becomes kind of salient and widely accepted in the political zeitgeist, and I think we can all see that at some point we're going to get there, we're talking about bringing down a lot of the edifices that our world is built on. I mean, political systems, governments, economies, like a lot of us understand this. And we know that, all truth goes through three phases. First, it's mocked, it's ridiculed, then it's violently opposed, and then it's accepted, self-evident. And we're obviously still in the ridicule phase now. But once we get to that next modulation and it becomes violently opposed, what can we expect to see there and how can we prepare ourselves for it?
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question, but I don't think we'll ever see the system accepting this at all, because it has the potential to take down the entire system. Yeah, the first obvious thing that'll be questioned is where is all this money going? Yeah, and then why are you lying to us? And the system can't stand that. It will not be able to stand that. It will collapse overnight. So they will not, even if every man, woman, and child in the world knew that this was a flat Earth, will they ever admit it?
I agree.
That's it.
All right, thank you guys so much for being here. All of you guys are awesome. I've really enjoyed all the presentations. Jeranism, you definitely beat Red's rhetoric, in my opinion. I don't think he had anything really to say. He was kind of just, coming back to different things, trying to disprove you, but he wasn't even taking in the science and things behind our point of view. Allegedly, Dave, that was an awesome discussion with the science nerds. I think it was in Britain or somewhere. And you actually were going back and forth, several times. I feel like we should have way more of those with science nerds that want to come enthusiastically proving the globe, because it'll be a fun discussion to see that. And ODD, amazing, turned me on to so much new stuff. I just have a question about the outer laying Antarctic wall. What are your guys' thoughts on beyond the wall relating to, Atlantis and these different types of islands in the next section, as well as beyond those, and where do you guys kind of go for that research?
Well, I personally think that there's many hidden lands right in our own pond that we don't even know about at this point, including the North Pole. And that's one thing that I really am interested in seeing come to the light. There is that one map, Jeran was talking about it earlier, that has the one ring and then the second outer ring. That could be a huge possibility. We just don't know. But to be honest, when I think about it, I feel like the land kind of terminates after Antarctica. That's just my personal opinion. I'm sure everybody up here has a different opinion on it. So if anybody else wants to answer that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a little bit of evidence out there that, if you talk about the books that the Iron Republic and other books like that. But outside of that, no, I think that what makes sense to me is that the sun's throw of light and heat only goes so far. After that, it would be too cold for anybody to travel. We see that when people try and go circumnavigation going south, they hit the 90-degree marker or what they tell us is, and they turn around. They say the weather's too bad, my compass didn't work. So I think that things just get hairy when you get out there. Now, could there be another sun that's out like that map that I showed? It's possible. It certainly is possible. There's nothing that I would say that would tell me that isn't possible. But I don't have any personal evidence for that being the truth. But it's certainly possible, and it would really answer the question of why are they lying about it, which is that one thing.
I'm very much of the same opinion of what Jeran just shared. When I look at the events from Operation High Jump through Operation Deep Freeze, it just really screams of something was found. There's these, you heard Admiral Byrd say, there's another land the size of America or whatever he said, that's intriguing. There's those maps that show the outer rings. Is it possible? Sure, maybe it is possible. If it is, then the firmament just got way bigger to accommodate all of that, because I do believe the firmament. But it just seems to me, when you look at especially Operation Deep Freeze and everything that immediately followed after that, it really does scream of, hey, we just hit the edge of something. How high does this thing go? Operation Fishbowl? Really? You're going to call it Operation Fishbowl? Project Dominic of the Lord? Fishbowl of the Lord? If they're trying to avoid a conspiracy, they're not helping with the names. So I am of the opinion that it terminates somewhere probably beyond 1,200 miles, I would say. I've asked a number of people I've met that worked in Antarctica, that spent time there, Lockheed Martin and other contractors and stuff like that. And everybody I've asked so far, I've asked them, did you or anybody you ever heard of or knew ever go more than 800 to 1,200 miles inland from any area of the coast of Antarctica? And the answer has always been no. So, you know, I think it just gets really bad, and eventually you get to a point where you find the dome.
Hello? Okay, there you go. I actually subscribe to the same model, the sort of continents that we're used to, the ice ring, and then further continents because of what Admiral Byrd said. And that map that was found, was that the one you showed, the map that was found in Hawaii?
No, that's a different one. But
Okay.
that's a 1,000-year-old map.
Yeah, the 1,000-year-old map that was found in Hawaii with the continents strung out around. Now that's one that I should just subscribe to because Admiral Byrd basically said he found that continent, and sure enough, and this is really way up too high, sure enough he found there was a continent that seemed to be the right size on that map and apparently in the right place. The other thing that was intriguing was the Encyclopedia Americana entry for Antarctica for 1958, I think it was. From 1955, okay, thanks for correcting me. Yeah, the dome at 13,000 feet. Yeah, I think I was in a debate with the non sequitur people, and I don't know if anyone saw it, but there was Gandalf down in the corner who started saying, "Oh no, it doesn't mean there was a dome. It was a dome of ice, a dome of snow that was there at 13,000 feet." Yeah, it's no. Admiral Byrd went over there with a whole load of aircraft. He came back with most of them missing. And, you know, it seems to me, you know, Mr. Ordinary, I think that he kept crashing airplanes in the dome. Yeah, 13,000 feet. That's why they knew it was, you know, there was a dome there. I think there's also Worlds Beyond the Poles that said that they went out 2,600 feet, 100 miles out, made a camp, then went another 2,600 miles out. And they, as far as they could tell, they couldn't find the end of it. So I think that map from that was found in Hawaii is accurate, just on a hunch, and then you find the dome. And just very quickly, I don't want to take too much time, but to answer your question about the suns having to be another sun, if you get like a shiny metal bowl and put a light source inside that bowl, not only will you get the light thrown down on the bottom, but you get this weird ring of light that goes all the way around. So maybe it's something like that.
Okay, so my question is probably going to cause stone throwing, but a lot of Christians become flat earthers, and me being a former Christian, I find it difficult to talk to Christian flat earthers because they still believe in the words of a book written by men that has been changed and twisted in and out of translations over and over. And for me, at least, holding on to the belief that the Bible is inherently true isn't too much different from people holding on to the belief in a globe. And I just wanted to know what you think about that. Okay.
Yeah, I know where that question is directed. Oh, this comes up all the time. I mean, this came up in Edmond. We had one of the press, saying you're supposed to test all things, and yet you're telling us to take it on faith because the Bible says it. I've never told you to take it on faith because the Bible says it. Test everything, even the Bible. Test the Bible. There have been lots of people who set out as atheists to disprove the Bible and end up becoming Christians because they realize, this thing's true. So same thing with flat earthers. People, we all started out as globe earthers trying to debunk flat earthers, then we became flat earthers. So there are lots of people out there, lots of books, various things I could recommend if you're interested, but you actually have to take the time to do that same kind of research to look into why this has been an accepted book. Have there been issues of translation? Absolutely. And I'm finding them myself as a Bible-believing Christian, that there has been tampering with the Bible. One of them in particular, I'll just go ahead and share it. Why not, since we're throwing stones? Christians typically worship on Sunday, right? Because we see it in the New Testament. They met on the first day of the week. First day of the week, Sunday, right? Okay, look it up in Greek. If you look up in Greek, it says miaton sabaton. Sabaton, Sabbath, Saturday. So I called my friend Peter, who grew up in Greece, speaks Greek fluently, has no dog in this hunt, doesn't even know why I'm asking the question. I said, Peter, if I said to you, miaton sabaton, what did you just hear? He said, one time on Saturday. And yet we have Christians everywhere worshiping on Sunday because we think the New Testament tells us that they met on the first day of the week, but that's not what it says. So, and there's lots more like that, sadly. So, but it's not one of these things that you could say, oh, well, my English translation is perfect. Look, guess what, guys? The Bible was not written in English. It was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. So you actually have to take the time and invest the time. Like, we have invested a lot of time trying to figure out what the shape of the earth is. Well, if you're genuinely concerned about the Bible, then you have to spend a significant amount of time looking into the Bible, how it was created, what the long process that was involved with it. There's a lot to it, and it takes a lot of time. Or you can look for people who have already done that and read what they did and see what they came up with. For me personally, it's been an issue of experience. I have experienced things, and you can't relate to that because my experiences are not something you can relate to. All I can tell you is what I have experienced as a result of my faith in the things that are written in that book. But if you want to understand that book, you got to study it.
Can I also hear answers from non-Christians in the panel? Is that okay to ask? I just want to hear. Sorry, no.
I'd like to say that we're all on the same team either way. I'm not Christian, and I don't plan on being a Christian. I've looked into it. I've even asked Rob Skiba for advice on how to find this kind of the answers I was looking for, and I really didn't find it. And at the end of the day, I found out that it's not necessary for us all to be Christian or, the Bible has commandments that I believe in. I believe that we shouldn't kill, we shouldn't steal, we shouldn't hurt people. And, those are basic rules that pretty much any sane human being would be able to follow. So at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. We're trying to, flip this system on its back and take over and make things better for this world and our children in the future. So if you're having difficulties talking to Christians, then maybe, you just stay firm on your opinions or how you view things and let them stay firm, but don't let it ruin friendships or relationships.
And I think what David said earlier, if you guys didn't hear his presentation in the next room, where he was talking about how to talk to family, but he does a radio show, the Flat Earth Podcast, with Matt Long, and Matt Long is a Christian and David Weiss is not. And Matt Long will always start every conversation about Flat Earth from a Christian viewpoint, and David Weiss would never start a conversation from a Christian viewpoint. And it's even better, in my opinion, to not, because you can say, look at all these reasons that the earth is flat, and the Bible is a flat earth book, period. There's no way anybody can argue that. I thought Rob Skiba did a great job of showing that last night, that the Bible is what I would expect it to be if it was written when they say it was. It's the way the world looks to them. And I think it shows that the earth is flat. So I use that as a proof at the very end. You won't catch me saying things about the Bible because I think there's enough proof that the earth is flat without needing to go to the text.
Robbie, go ahead and close us out.
Testing. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions. We're going to have to close it up at this point. But I want to say a big thanks to all the panelists, and let's give a big round of applause for Karen B., Rob Skiba, Dave Murphy, Jeran Campanella, ODD TV, David Weiss, Bob Knodel, and Patricia Steere. What's that? You want to do it? Yeah, do it.